Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now it was about 5.5 years ago that I bought a 3GB GTX 1060 for my personal system. This exact model actually. At that time I was really happy with my purchase and even more pleased with the money I had saved by opting for this card over the 6GB variant. Fast forward to 2022 and the prices of new and used cards have finally started coming down. This 1060 cost me £130, a little bit more than 1050 Ti's are going for, and about £30 to £40 cheaper than a 6GB 1060. A few months ago, I might have been less hesitant to suggest the 3GB 1060 to those who were on a stricter budget, but with the way things are right now in terms of prices, nah, video over. Seriously though, I thought we'd take a look at how the 3GB card is holding up anyway, because while it may not seem worth it in comparison to the slightly more expensive 6GB version, it is still a sensibly priced used option, and prices may vary depending on where you live. So say goodbye to half your VRAM and 128 CUDA cores, because this cut down 1060 is going to show us what it can do. Starting with Warzone, and as you might have guessed, very low is ideal for 60 FPS at 1080p. Now of course 60 FPS isn't a must, it all depends on personal preference, but in first person shooters like this, it is far more ideal than 30. The game informed us that we had exceeded the VRAM limit even with the low settings, but that didn't mean that the game was unplayable. There were some odd little stutters you might be able to pick up in the video, but I think these are due to the connection problems I've been having this week. There's a new internet provider being switched on where I live and it's causing chaos at the moment. Hopefully these issues then aren't being caused by the 3GB card, and I don't think they are because there was nothing too serious in the percentile figures to say otherwise. It's a different kind of stuttering when it's the game. Cyberpunk 2077 did better than I thought. Of course we now have the addition of FSR in this and other games, but I wanted to keep things at native today because I don't feel the quality sacrifice would be worth the extra frames, and 60 FPS wouldn't constantly be doable anyway. It is up to you though. I prefer to play somewhere between 40 and 60 FPS with native 1920 by 1080 as opposed to enabling Fidelity FX Super Resolution. It's really not that bad or as bad as I thought it would be. I was expecting low 30s for an average, so to hit an average that's at least 10 or so FPS higher is nice, and the game still looks good on low. The 1060 is still supported by Nvidia driver wise as well, so there's no concern there yet either. Elden Ring is capped at 60 frames per second, and with the medium preset we were able to hit that a lot of the time. The average actually came back as 58 because more densely populated areas will cause some frame dips, but overall it's nothing too serious. The game is very much playable with Nvidia's weaker 1060 variant. You'll notice that the VRAM is going to be between 2.5 and 3 gigs throughout as well. Modern games will really push this card, but even in those games that apparently exceed the memory limitation, well, I didn't see anything that was too horrific in terms of performance. You will notice yourself having to make some texture quality sacrifices though, but more about that later on. Far Cry 6 crashed first of all, but then I remembered that it recently got an update, and all I needed to do was verify the game files from within the Ubisoft launcher. I mentioned just now that texture quality has to be sacrificed, but honestly, in 2022, all the settings need to be sacrificed. It's not just a VRAM limitation anymore, this card is just better suited to low or medium settings anyway. I can't pretend that the 6GB card wouldn't do better, because of course it would. I think the 3GB card here though is better than you might think. It's certainly better than I thought, even if we are limited to lower quality visuals a lot of the time. We were also exceeding the VRAM limit here too on paper, even when I switched to 720p low, but there wasn't too much of an impact on the 1 and 0.1% lows. Again, it was more my connection issues plaguing Fortnite than anything else. The game ran okay. We saw the usual stutter here and there, but it is playable even at high. Different areas of the map will run differently, and you might want to consider a 60 FPS cap to make the drops a little less noticeable, or you could turn things down to medium. High was probably a little bit ambitious if I'm honest. The same could be said about Forza Horizon 5, although this Oasis Desert Race ran really well at high settings with 2x MSAA enabled. I left the game at the high preset that it seemed to have been left on the last time I played, either that or it defaulted to this. Medium would be a safer option, but there's no reason you can't go for high. Having said that, I've got a bad feeling about those busy town races. Things should hold pretty steady, but I'll admit 3 gigs of VRAM is somewhat of a concern. I'm going into every game as if I'm treading on eggshells. A 3 gigabytes of VRAM world is an uncertain one in this day and age, and I have a feeling that the next year or two will be very harsh on our little friend here. Last but not least, it's Red Dead Redemption 2. Now earlier I mentioned texture quality sacrifices, and this is where I must refer back to that point. Usually I go into RDR2 with Digital Foundry's Xbox One X equivalent settings, which include ultra textures. Unfortunately, I couldn't select ultra textures from the in-game menu, and to use them I'd have to edit the game's INI document. It's not difficult, it's just mildly inconvenient. Ultra might cause a bit of a performance loss anyway, but instead I went for high, which in this game is noticeably not as good as Ultra, but it still looks pretty good overall and runs well too. Owners of this card have probably been making texture quality sacrifices for years, and now in 2022 it seems as though the other settings might have to join the textures in being reduced in order to get the best performance out of modern games. But you know what, I think that while the 6GB 1060 is for sure the better choice, the 3GB card hasn't done that badly. If I was still using mine that I bought in 2016, I'd be fairly happy with my investment, yet part of me would have always been wondering, what if I had spent the extra? Thank you very much for watching then. This has been a look at the 3GB GTX 1060 in 2022. It's a card that, well, it sort of holds a special place in my heart. It was my first sort of mid-range GPU, I'd say, back in the day, back in 2016. I think I had it paired with an i5 4460, and back then that was a pretty decent combination, and I think I used it, well, for a couple of years, so I got some decent usage out of it, and back then I never had any problems. But there we go, the 3GB 1060 in 2022. If you can find one, consider how much it costs in comparison to the 6GB card where you live, because in all honesty that would certainly be the better bet, even if it's 30, 40 or 50 pounds more. Then again, you'll have to see what newer options you could find at that price point. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like on it down below. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Let me know if you still have one of these cards in your system and how well it's doing for you, because I'd love to hear your experiences with the games that you play. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one. At this resolution, this GPU should set me up for years to come, and I certainly don't plan on gaming at 4K. I think £180 for a few years of happiness is a great price to pay, and I could and will easily recommend this card to anyone.